Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a world that's often unseen but absolutely keeps our global economy moving: international shipping.
Right. It's massive.
Huge. And it's not just about those giant cargo ships, it's the real backbone of global trade. But right now, it's at this critical point, navigating some really complex waters around climate change and decarbonization.
Absolutely. The pressure on this industry to clean up its act is immense. And that brings us right to our topic today, the International Maritime Organization, the IMO.
Right, the IMO.
And it's a pretty ambitious plan for net zero shipping emissions. But what's really making headlines is the pushback, significant public opposition, specifically from the United States.
Okay, yeah, let's definitely unpack this. So for our insights today, we're drawing on recent reporting from Splash 247. They had articles on August 13th and 14th, 2025, right? Capturing the immediate fallout.
That's the source material, yeah? Fresh off the press, essentially.
Yeah. So our mission here is pretty clear. We need to kind of dissect this IMO plan, figure out the U.S. objections, and then really explore what this whole disagreement means for shipping, for climate goals.
For everyone, really. Who gets impacted? Why should you care? And maybe what happens next?
Exactly. So let's start with the IMO's big push. Where did this framework come from?
Well, it's not out of the blue. The IMO has been working on curbing greenhouse gases from ships for years. The big target is net zero by 2050.
2050, okay.
And this framework we're talking about, it's really the culmination of years of trying to build consensus among all the member states.
Right, that consensus part is key. So what's actually in the plan? What's on the table? We know back in April, most members, like 63 of them, including big players, China, Brazil, EU nations,
The heavyweights.
they agreed to the framework in principle. That was at the Marine Environment Protection Committee, the MEPC meeting. But even then, 16 states were opposed, so it wasn't unanimous from the start.
No, definitely not. And the framework itself has some core parts. First, there's this idea of carbon pricing. Levies, basically.
Okay, fees.
Yeah, fees for ships that don't meet emission targets. The numbers they floated were $380 per ton of CO2 equivalent if you miss a base target starting 2028.
Wow, $380 a ton. That sounds like a lot.
It is significant. And then $100 per ton for failing a direct compliance target between 2028 and 2030. Future figures are still TBD.
And just quickly, CO2 equivalent, that covers more than just carbon dioxide, right?
Yeah.
Methane, other stuff.
Exactly. It's the whole bundle of greenhouse gases measured by their warming impact. And these different targets, base versus direct, they look at overall efficiency and maybe more specific operational things.
Got it. So it's comprehensive on the gases, pushing on different fronts. What else besides the money, the levies?
Well, there are also stricter mandates on GHG intensity, greenhouse gas intensity, meaning the energy ship's use has to get cleaner overall, reducing its total climate impact per unit of energy. And tied to that, new fuel standards, pushing for the use of cleaner fuels altogether.
So levies, intensity rules, fuel standards, it's a package deal.
It is, and it's all heading towards this critical test, they're calling it, at the next MEPC meeting in October. That's when a formal vote might happen.
And if they can't all agree, if consensus isn't reached,
then they need a two-thirds majority. That's 108 out of the 176 IMO members.
Yeah.
And honestly, with positions hardening, reaching full consensus seems less likely now.
Okay, so that's the IMO plan, ambitious, years in the making. But then comes the friction. The U.S., under the Trump administration, publicly rejects it. Splash 247 called the move offensive. Pretty strong language.
It was strong. They didn't mince words. You had a joint statement from several: Secretary of State, Commerce, Energy, Transportation, Rubio, Lutnick, Wright, Duffy.
Right. And what was their headline?
They flat out called it a global carbon tax on Americans.
A global carbon tax on Americans. Okay, that's the soundbite. But what's the argument behind that? Why do they feel it burdens the U.S. unfairly?
Their core points are, one, it unduly or unfairly burdens the United States, and harms the interests of the American people.
How so, specifically?
They argue it would penalize U.S. industries while, quote, conveniently benefiting China. Their reasoning is it forces the use of expensive fuels that aren't available globally yet.
The fuel availability issue.
Right. And they specifically mention that it penalizes fuels where they feel the U.S. industry leads, like LNG and biofuels. So it's partly about competitiveness.
And the cost to ordinary people.
Yes, they hit that hard too, claiming it would directly drive up costs for American consumers. They said even small vessels could face millions of dollars in fees.
Millions? For a small vessel, that seems dramatic.
That's the figure they used, yeah. It paints a picture of significant economic pain, and they added a warning
That
too.
warning, Like what?
That the administration would not hesitate to retaliate or explore remedies if the IMO adopts this plan, though no specifics on what retaliate actually means.
So threats of retaliation on top of the rejection. And this wasn't totally unexpected, right? Given the U.S. delegation walked out of the April talks.
Exactly. It's consistent with their earlier actions. But making it this formal and public really raises the stakes.
No kidding. So when a player as big as the U.S. draws such a hard line, what happens? How does the IMO, how does the industry react?
Well, the official IMO response was quite measured. The spokesperson basically said the October meeting is the place to discuss concerns. Diplomatic, keep the doors open for talks.
Standard procedure, maybe.
Yeah.
But under the surface, the industry must be buzzing.
Oh, absolutely. The ripple effects are immediate.
Yeah.
And you're already seeing different takes on what this practically means.
Right. You mentioned different views. Some experts seem less worried, like Dr. Tristan Smith. Others, like ING's economists, sound more alarmed.
That's right. Take BIMCO. They're the biggest shipping lobby group. They acknowledge the U.S. stance is unlikely to totally derail implementation if the framework passes.
Okay, so they think it could still go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah.
but they warn that U.S. non-participation would complicate enforcement significantly.
Complicate how?
Their key point is that ships trading internationally are generally bound by the rules of their flag state, but
Yeah.
even U.S. ships trading internationally would likely still need to comply. The only real exception might be trade just between the U.S. and another country that also isn't part of the rules, kind of a bilateral opt-out.
So it creates potential loopholes or maybe just a messier system.
It's your system, certainly.
Yeah.
But then you have Dr. Tristan Smith from UCL Energy Institute. He kind of downplays the U.S. position, says it's not news, really.
Not news. Why?
His argument rests on port state control. Basically, even if a ship's flag country doesn't enforce the rules, any country whose port that ship visits can inspect it and impose sanctions if it's non-compliant.
Ah, so if a U.S. flagship wants to dock in, say, Rotterdam.
It likely still has to meet the IMO standards enforced by the EU. Exactly. It makes it very hard to truly opt out if you want to trade globally.
That's a really important enforcement angle, so maybe it's not completely dead in the water. But could the U.S. stance still weaken the whole effort?
That's the worry expressed by others. Professor Lin Lu, she's CEO of the Global Center for Maritime Decarbonization. She thinks the framework won't be abandoned. Too much work has gone into it.
There's always a but.
But she concedes these political headwinds could definitely slow things down or water down the rules during implementation.
And the clock is ticking on 2050.
Precisely. Her warning is stark. Losing momentum now makes hitting those 2050 targets much harder. Especially, she notes, because scaling up new fuels, building infrastructure, new ships, that takes well over a decade.
Yeah, you can't just flip a switch. What about the economic fallout? The ING economist, Rico Lumen.
He called the U.S. rejection a blow. His concern is it could embolden other reluctant states. If the U.S. is out, maybe others think they can be too, or they get nervous.
Nervous out.
He worries other countries might hesitate, fearing U.S. retaliation, like the threat they made. This could put the final adoption in danger. It creates uncertainty and doubt across the board.
You can see how that political dynamic could play out. What does this uncertainty mean for the people actually owning and operating the ships?
Well, according to the broker SSY, that's the bigger headache right now. The sheer uncertainty for investment.
Investment in what? New ships? Fuels?
Exactly. They point out that ordering new ships, especially in sectors like dry bulk, is practically paralyzed. Why? Because owners don't have clear, stable rules to plan around.
So they don't know which fuel technology to bet on.
Pretty much. Owners are currently hedging their bets, maybe some LNG capability, maybe ammonia ready, maybe methanol, trying to future-proof without knowing what the future is.
That sounds expensive and inefficient.
It is. SSY's quote really hits it. Confidence matters more than rhetoric in shipping. Ship owners need predictable rules to make multi-million-dollar, multi-decade investments.
And are the industry groups echoing this need for clarity?
Yes, the International Chamber of Shipping is stressing that formal adoption is crucial to give the industry the certainty it needs to invest in the green shift.
Makes sense. And the environmental groups. I assume they're not happy with the U.S. stance.
Not at all. NGOs have widely condemned it, warning that any further delay seriously risks the sector's ability to meet climate targets, puts the whole 2050 goal in jeopardy.
Okay, there was also a comment mentioned in Splash 247, a contrarian voice.
Ah, yes, a commenter named Martin Benson. He pushed back on the global carbon tax on Americans' framing.
How so?
His point was essentially the tax only applies to non-compliant Americans. If U.S. ships comply with the rules, there are no penalties. It's a choice, in his view.
An interesting perspective, framing it as a compliance incentive rather than an unavoidable tax.
It adds another layer to the debate, yeah.
So let's try and pull this together. We've got this major global push for decarbonizing shipping, years of work by the IMO.
Clashing head-on with very strong economic and, frankly, sovereignty concerns from a major world power, the U.S.
Right. And the stakes feel incredibly high. It's not just hitting climate targets, is it?
No, not at all. It's the stability of a vital global industry, it's billions in investment decisions hanging in the balance, and it could even impact the cost of goods for consumers everywhere.
So for you, our listener, maybe here's the thought to chew on. We see this deep interconnectivity between global trade, national interests, and the urgent need for climate action.
How do you balance those?
Yeah. How do we square national economic priorities with the need for global consensus on shared challenges like climate change?
And maybe even more fundamentally, what happens to these big international efforts when a major player decides to opt out, or at least threatens to? How does that reshape international cooperation itself going forward?
That's the big question hanging over all of this, really. Lots to think about.